Have you ever just stopped and thought, what actually drives us at work?
Hmm.
Why some days feel great, totally in sync, and others are just such a struggle?
Yeah, or why the same news, like a big company change, gets such different reactions from everyone.
Exactly. We've been digging through a whole stack of sources for today's deep dive, academic stuff, new research
Yeah.
papers. And it kept coming back to this core idea, work-related attitudes and values. So we're going to unpack the really key bits here.
Yeah, our goal, really, is to give you a shortcut, a solid grasp of how these deep beliefs, even the opinions that shift around a bit, how they shape everything.
Everything from your own happiness, your commitment.
Right up to the whole vibe,
Mm,
the culture of the place. We want you to have those aha moments, Quick, clear, no fluff.
Definitely. And this isn't just theory, right? It's super practical for anyone in the workplace today.
Absolutely.
Whether you're prepping for a meeting, thinking about a new field, or honestly just curious about why people do what they do, this is for you.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's start with the basics. What even is an attitude? Psychologists usually land on it being a learned way of evaluating stuff.
Stuff like people, issues, objects, events.
Yeah, that internal leaning,
Yep.
positive or negative, it shapes how we see things.
And a really helpful way to think about it is the ABC theory, Albert Ellis back in
Yeah,
57.
UBC. Okay.
A is for affective. That's the feeling part, the emotion. B is behavioral, what you actually do, your reaction.
Right.
And C is cognitive, your thoughts, your beliefs, how you process it all. They're all tangled together.
Okay, let's make that concrete. The sources had a good example. Say your company brings in new tech or reorganizes. Your
Mhm.
first thought might be, oh no, job loss. That's C, cognitive.
And you start feeling maybe scared, anxious. That's A, affective.
And then maybe you complain or, push back somehow. That's B, behavioral. See how it flows. Thought, feeling, action.
It's a neat model. And it's interesting, too, that not all attitudes are the same strength. Some are core attitudes,
Four.
deeply ingrained, really stable, hard to change, almost part of your personality.
Ah, okay.
And others are peripheral, more temporary, easier to shift based on new info or experiences.
So where do these come from? How do they even develop?
Well, a lot starts early, right? Parents, friends, school, community, the culture you grew up in.
Makes sense.
But it keeps going. Think about modern stuff, mass media, social media, Facebook, Instagram, X. They shape perceptions massively.
Oh, totally.
Plus, your own experiences, what you learn, even just socializing at work, it all keeps molding them.
This connects to something else. The sources highlighted the difference between beliefs, opinions, and attitudes. They're related, but not quite the same.
Exactly. Beliefs are part of that cognitive seed. They link to your values. For you, they feel like truths.
Even if they aren't objectively, factual.
Right. And these truths shape your attitudes towards your boss, your work, whatever. Opinions are more specific takes on facts, like, is this wage fair? They have feelings attached too. But here's the key thing. Opinions based just on facts, they can change pretty easily if the facts change.
Right. New data, new opinion.
Yeah. But an opinion rooted in a deeper attitude, much harder. Say someone thinks minimum wage is unfair not because of the number, but because they have a generally negative attitude towards employers. Changing the number won't fix the underlying attitude.
Ah, I see. And that shows how attitudes can feed into bigger things. Prejudice, stereotypes.
Discrimination, absolutely.
Mm,
Which is why managers, HR folks, psychologists, they need to get this. These attitudes drive behavior, commitment, the whole work climate.
it's fundamental.
So if they're so fundamental, why can attitudes be so stubborn, so resistant to change?
Good question. Our sources, Kreischu's work from 2004 was interesting here. Attitudes actually do a lot for us.
Like what?
Well, they let us express our unique view, right? Like saying, I believe women make great leaders. That's expressing something core. They help us organize information, simplify things, even if it means, twisting reality a bit. Like a manager who dislikes foreign workers seeing a talented one as just the exception.
Instead of challenging the stereotype,
Right.
they help us filter facts to confirm what we already think, focusing only on the bad stuff a colleague you dislike does.
Confirmation bias.
And they can protect our ego. Like if you miss a promotion, blaming a biased manager feels better than facing your own weaknesses.
A defense mechanism.
Yeah. Plus, they express central values, like a company being big on social responsibility. And they give us social identity, a sense of belonging. Think smokers gathering outside work, shared attitude, shared group.
And they even give us a way to connect with others, right? What do you think? How do you feel? It starts conversations.
Exactly. So given all of these benefits, changing an attitude feels like you're messing with something really useful, even fundamental to how you operate or see yourself.
Okay. So they're sticky. But how do they change? The sources mention two main ways, right? Self-induced change and persuasion. Yeah, basically changing your own mind or someone else changing it for you.
Let's start with the self-induced part. What's going on inside our heads?
A big one is cognitive dissonance, Leon Festinger's theory from 57.
Ah, dissonance, that feeling of discomfort.
Exactly. When your thoughts or beliefs or actions don't line up when they logically should, it creates tension.
Got an example?
Sure. The source mentioned an IT guy really against gambling, hates it, but then gets a great project offer from a gambling company.
Oof. Conflict.
Right. Dissonance. So how does he reduce it? Maybe he rationalizes, well, gambling's a personal choice. Or, hey, some profits go to charity.
Ah, finding ways to make it okay in his head.
Festinger said we do a few things. Seek info that supports our choice, ignore info that doesn't.
Misinterpret things.
Hmm.
Like that promotion example, blaming the manager instead of looking inward.
Find friends who agree with our new stance.
Or just decide the conflicting thing isn't that important anyway. Yeah, I dislike my manager, but she is dynamic. Especially when she includes me in stuff.
And the classic experiment here, Festinger and Carl Smith, 59. So fascinating.
The one with the dull task.
Yeah. People did a super boring task, then were paid either $1 or $20 to tell the next person it was actually fun.
Okay.
The $20 group, they felt fine lying, the money justified it, less dissonance. But the $1 group, that tiny payment wasn't enough to justify the lie.
So they felt really conflicted.
Exactly. Massive dissonance. So to reduce it, they actually changed their own attitude. They convinced themselves the task was interesting after all.
Wow. So the internal pressure to be consistent made them literally change their perception.
Wild, isn't it? Shows how hard we work to make sense of our own actions.
So dissonance is one way. What else for self-induced change?
There's also self-perception theory, Daryl Bem, 72. It's kind of simpler. It suggests we figure out our attitudes by looking at our own behavior.
Like I keep doing this, so I must like it.
Sort of, yeah. It's like observing yourself and drawing conclusions. A subtle self-persuasion. This links nicely to reflective practice.
Reflective practice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
about becoming more aware, right?
Exactly. Aware of your own assumptions, beliefs, attitudes. By consciously thinking back on experiences, reflecting, reviewing critically, and maybe reframing them.
How do you do that?
Tools like journaling, writing narratives, visualizing, asking tough questions, or just talking it through with others, it's about deliberate self-awareness.
Okay, so that's changing from the inside out. What about when others try to change our attitudes? Persuasive communication.
Yeah, and this is huge in leadership, management, entrepreneurship, even for employees wanting to influence things. The key, the source's stress, is empathy, not coercion, understanding the other person.
Right. Campbell's work broke persuasion down into 4 bits.
Oh.
First, the communicator.
Who is sending the message? Their credibility is key.
Credibility based on
Like-
expertise, status.
Yep, expertise, authority, status, but also likability, trustworthiness. For managers, a lot comes from being willing to actually listen, consider ideas, let people speak up, even tolerate mistakes.
Okay, communicator first. Then the message itself.
This needs real thought. Clarity, word choice, how it's structured, the framing positive spin or negative, what kind of evidence.
The sources mentioned narrative versus statistical messages.
Yeah.
Stories versus facts.
Yeah. Stories often make the speaker seem warmer, more relatable. Good for collaboration, stats make them seem more competent, maybe better for competitive stuff.
Interesting. What about one-sided versus two-sided arguments?
One-sided, just the positives works if people are neutral or already on your side. But two-sided positives and negatives is usually better if you know people disagree, or if they're well-informed and likely know the downsides anyway.
Like introducing robotics. Got to talk job creation and job losses to be credible.
Exactly. And then there are fear messages. They can work, but it's tricky.
Too much fear backfires.
Yeah, people might just tune out that immunization effect or get too anxious to even process the facts. Moderate fear or maybe moderately negative messages seem more effective.
Got it. So communicator,
Yeah.
message. What's third? The channel.
How the message gets delivered. Usually, a mix is best. Face-to-face, meetings, written stuff, social media, combining visual, text, voice.
Like the COVID comms example.
Oh.
Emails, posters, digital training, web links. hitting multiple channels.
And social networks are incredibly powerful for persuasion now, right?
Oh, absolutely. They offer this unique mix, targeted messages, super fast spread, huge reach, and you can actually measure the impact. Very effective structure.
Okay, communicator, message, channel, last one.
The target group, the audience. This is where dialogue is crucial.
Making people feel involved, not just lectured at.
Precisely. If people feel part of the conversation, they invest more, they commit more. Strategy matters too. If a group's divided, maybe talk to individuals first. If most agree, address the whole group.
But watch out for it. Was it group polarization?
Yeah, where the group discussion actually makes everyone's individual attitudes stronger or more extreme than they were before. Think heated union meetings.
Right, okay, that's a solid framework for understanding attitudes and how they change. Now let's zoom in on the workplace specifically. Which attitudes really matter day to day?
Well, the big ones are probably job satisfaction, organizational commitment, engagement, and even just plain happiness at work.
Let's start with job satisfaction. Pretty straightforward. Liking your job.
Essentially, yeah. A mostly positive attitude toward your work. And it has those ABC components, too. You think the job is good, cognitive, you feel happy about it, effective, and you act positively, maybe work harder, behavioral. Dissatisfaction works the same way, just negatively.
And if someone is dissatisfied, how do they react? The sources mention 4 ways: exit, neglect.
Right, Russ Bolt and Lowry's model. Exit is active but bad for the org, quitting, withdrawing. Neglect is passive and bad, doing less, working slower.
Okay. Then the constructive ones.
Voice is active and good, speaking up, trying to fix the problem. And loyalty is passive but, well, potentially productive, sticking it out, doing the minimum, maybe hoping things improve. Blind loyalty, sometimes.
The South African nursing studies gave real examples, didn't they? Pay, workload, conditions, supervisors.
Yeah, also company policies, family issues spilling over, lack of motivation, unfair promotions, staff shortages, lots of potential triggers for dissatisfaction. Interestingly, things like having responsibility or achieving something often bring high satisfaction.
While pay or advancement might rank lower sometimes.
Can happen. Depends on the person and the context.
So the bottom line for organizations, satisfaction matters a lot.
Hugely. It links positively to performance, to that extra mile stuff, OCB, even to general life happiness, and negatively to turnover, absenteeism, lateness, grievances. It ripples out everywhere.
Okay, next up, organizational commitment, feeling connected to the company.
Pretty much. Identifying with the organization and its goals. Meyer and Allen broke it down into 3 types.
3 kinds of commitment.
Yeah. First, effective commitment. This is the want-to-stay feeling. You identify with the goals, the values, you feel good contributing. A caring culture, meaningful work boosts this. Discrimination kills it.
Okay, want to stay. What else?
Second, continuance commitment. This is more need to stay. You've invested time, effort, benefits. It costs too much to leave, like golden handcuffs almost.
Right. And the third?
Normative commitment. This is the ought-to-stay feeling. An obligation, like it's the right thing to do. Loyalty, duty.
And commitment ties into that organizational citizenship behavior, OCB, you mentioned.
Very closely. OCB is that voluntary, above and beyond stuff that helps the organization run smoothly. It's not in the job description.
Like helping colleagues, volunteering for committees, being positive even when things are annoying.
Exactly. Tolerating inconveniences, that's called sportsmanship. Arriving early, conscientiousness. Promoting the org externally, boosterism. These are the good soldiers, the opposite of the bad apples doing counterproductive things.
That Nigerian study linking psychological capital, hope, optimism, resilience, and emotional intelligence to OCB is interesting. Developing those internal resources helps people contribute more.
It suggests a strong link, yeah? Building people's inner strength seems to encourage that extra mile behavior.
Okay, let's move to engagement. This word is everywhere now. What does it really mean in this context?
It's about being fully absorbed physically, cognitively, and emotionally in your job. That feeling of being in the zone, optimal functioning.
Right, losing track of time because you're so into it.
That's the sweet spot. And the benefits. Huge. Better organizational performance, higher job satisfaction, lower turnover, happier customers, more productivity.
So how do managers foster it?
Creating a supportive, caring culture is key. Think about social responsibility, empowering employees, work-life balance, fairness. It's systemic.
Like that Whittington and Galpin model, it's macro strategy and micro leadership, all built on trust.
Precisely. And companies actually measure this stuff now, like VW South Africa using the Gallup survey. It's a serious focus.
Finally, happiness at work. This feels newer, especially from the positive organizational scholarship POS angle.
It is a newer focus, yeah.
Hmm.
POS shifts from just fixing problems to actively studying what makes workplaces positive and people thrive. Wellness, psychological capital, flourishing,
Mm.
getting the full picture.
It's gained traction, right? Nobel Prizes, the UN Day of Happiness.
Definitely. And at its core, workplace happiness seems to come from avoiding pain, sure, but more deeply, from finding purpose and meaning.
Reading through.
Significant work, feeling like you belong, coherence, having guidance, and generativity, feeling like you're contributing to something bigger.
And for the organization, fostering this leads to.
Growth, self-esteem, optimism, resilience, energy, self-determination, better relationships. And that Turkey study found happiness linked to psychological and social capital, especially when trust was high. It all connects.
Okay, so we've covered attitudes, the weather. Now let's drill down to the bedrock. Values.
Right. Values are deeper, more ingrained beliefs. Like your personal code or principles about what's important, what's a preferred way to behave. They're part of your personality.
More stable than attitudes, then.
Generally, yes. Schwartz's research highlights key features. They're packed with feeling. They guide our goals. They're pretty consistent across situations. They act as standards for judging things. We rank them in importance, and they strongly influence behavior.
And they develop similarly to attitudes. Parents, culture, experience.
Largely, yes. Those formative influences are huge.
And for IO Psychs and HR, understanding values helps with.
Career choices, predicting job attitudes, motivation, finding the right person-job fit. And remember, organizations have values too, their own collective systems.
Schwartz's theory found those 10 universal values across cultures, didn't it? Things like self-direction, security, tradition, benevolence.
Yeah, recognized in over 80 countries.
Mm.
And they're organized, like some values naturally oppose others, like valuing openness to change versus valuing conservation and tradition. It provides a kind of map.
What about generational values? We hear so much about boomers versus Gen X versus millennials versus Gen Z.
It's a popular topic, definitely. The idea is that major life events shape each generation's values differently. Boomers distrusting authority, Gen Y seeking meaning, Gen Z shaped by digital life.
But the sources urged caution here.
Strongly. While there might be some differences, research suggests that variations within a generation are often bigger than the average differences between generations. Stereotyping is risky.
So for workplace conflict, focusing on generational differences might not be the best first step.
Probably not. Better to use interviews or focus groups to understand the specific issues. And interventions like team building or diversity training are usually more helpful than just labeling generations.
Okay, good caution. Now let's broaden out again. Cultural values in organizations.
Right. Organizational culture is that shared pattern of assumptions a group learns over time. How to perceive, think, feel. It's taught to new members. Values are tied to groups, families, teams, companies, nations.
And Hofstede and the GLO project gave us ways to measure these cultural dimensions affecting how people think, like power distance.
Exactly. High power distance means accepting inequality. Autocratic leadership. Low means more equality.
Individualism versus collectivism. Self-interest versus group loyalty.
Yep. Gender egalitarianism, sometimes called masculinity, femininity, is about assertiveness and competition versus modesty in relationships.
Uncertainty, avoidance comfort with ambiguity versus needing clear rules.
Plus others like assertiveness, future orientation, performance orientation, human orientation, how much you value caring and fairness.
The research from African organizations really brought this to life.
It did. That KwaZulu-Natal study showing a shift to Afrocentric leadership collectivism, human orientation aligning with traditional values, but also uncertainty avoidance, perhaps from the existing management structure.
And the SA company bought by the French one. Differences in power distance, collectivism, masculinity. But success came from being willing to adapt, find the best of both.
A key lesson there. And the Mosul study in Mozambique, high collectivism, high power distance, high uncertainty avoidance, more feminine. Even if people disliked inequality, they preferred structure, maybe out of insecurity, as Hofstede suggested.
Fascinating how these dimensions play out. So bringing it to today, corporate values are clearly shifting, aren't they? Forces like democratization, social movements, tech, the pandemic.
Absolutely. There's a much stronger emphasis now on a broader set of values. Integrity, quality, social impact, Ubuntu.
Let's talk ethics and integrity. Seems non-negotiable now.
It really is. Crucial for attracting talent, keeping customers. It's about moral values, justice, trust, Unethical stuff fraud, harassment, environmental harm is hugely damaging.
So companies use codes of conduct, ethics training, hotlines.
Yes, ethics committees, whistleblower protection, trying to build that ethical culture. South Africa even has specific codes for psychologists and HR pros.
And diversity and inclusivity, a huge focus, especially here.
A key value, aiming for justice and fairness. We
Mm.
have compliance checks, representation goals,
Mm.
but that's just the start.
Which brings us back to that subtle but powerful idea, microaggressions.
Right. Those everyday slights, put-downs, dismissals, often unintentional, stemming from hidden biases. They cause real pain and exclusion.
So true inclusivity needs more than just numbers.
Much more. It needs a culture of shared values, learning, collaboration, building emotional, social, cultural intelligence. It's deep work.
We're also seeing a shift in economic versus humanistic values, right? Not just shareholder value anymore.
Exactly. Pressure to create value for all stakeholders, employees, communities too. Balancing the economic with the human.
The humanistic view sees employees
As the end product, in a sense. Affirming them leads to a thriving organization, seeing the company as a human community aiming for common good, dignity. Hence the language shift, psychological safety, employee voice, associates.
This connects directly to corporate social responsibility, CSR.
For sure. Investing in community sponsorships, training, sharing expertise. Motivations vary reputation, the triple bottom line. But there's often a genuine ethical philanthropic drive too.
And in South Africa, CSR is often tied to transformation, social change, and employee engagement.
Yes. That Cook and Gildenhuys research showed employees getting involved in CSR, driven by compassion, actually leads to their own growth and fulfillment. It boosts wellness. A real win-win. So, wrapping this section up, understanding these value and attitude systems is just critical for managers.
You need to grasp individual values to motivate people.
And assess the overall organizational culture to see if it actually supports what you say you value. Cultural assessments are key to finding those gaps between talk and walk and fixing them.
Wow, what a journey we've taken, right from the definition of a single attitude.
All the way to the big picture of organizational and cultural values.
It's clear that understanding all this isn't just academic theory.
Not at all. It hits right at the heart of workplace behavior, effectiveness, and honestly, our own well-being at work. It's about seeing the forces shaping our daily experience.
So, the final thought to leave everyone with, how might understanding these deep values, these more flexible attitudes, how might that empower you to shape your own work experience and maybe influence the culture around you starting right now?
Yeah, what really stood out for you from this deep dive? Something to mull over.